Hello there, paper crafters. Kelly Baxter-Fitzgerald here with Snips by Kelly. And one of the questions that I often get asked about workshops that I design is, how do I get started? How do I get my ideas, and how do I get a sense of direction? So today I'm going to take you through the process of designing a layout, and I have not planned this layout out, but I'm going to be working on my Hey Handsome Simply Scrappin workshop. My Simply Scrappin workshops use the paper pack and sticker sheet, the Picture My Life cards, and the bling that goes with each line. And I'm going to first pull out all of the pattern papers that go with any particular line. So here are all the Hey Handsome pattern papers, and because they're two-sided, I like to make sure to fan out both sides, and then I like to look at the cheat sheet that's on the zip strip. Close to My Heart already tells us what cardstock colors would be great to coordinate with each pack. So I like to pull out one sheet of each of their recommended colors. It doesn't mean that I can't add colors of cardstock, but I love to see those colors next to the pattern papers that I'm working with. The next thing that I like to focus on is pulling out what I believe will work for titles. So I like to look at the bling that goes with the line, and in this case, Hey Handsome has acrylic shapes. I like to look at the Picture My Life cards and see if there are any particular titles that might work in the Picture My Life cards. And then I like to look at the titles that are on the sticker sheet. And in this particular embellishment pack, there are lots of wonderful icons like the stars and the glasses and the hat and the arrows that I will be using on the workshop, but there aren't any particular titles in the acrylic shapes this time. So I'll be looking at the Picture My Life cards, not only to get an idea of each of those Picture My Life cards, but to pull out some titles. So my Simply Scrappin workshop has 10 pages, and so that means I need at least 5 titles. There's lots of words on the sticker sheet that I can use, but I like to really narrow it down into some larger pieces that could be larger titles. I have used smaller bits for titles before, and that works just fine, but I really like to find the larger title pieces if possible. So now I'm just simply going through the pack and looking at everything and looking at all of the different patterns and getting a feel for which ones my instinct is telling me that I like the best. I really love the Hey Good Lookin'. I think I'll probably use this layout for my husband. And my husband always said that my scrapbooking is my love language, because I'm a lot more mushy in my scrapbook pages, he says, than I am in real time. And it probably is my outlet in terms of how I express myself. So I'm just pointing out a few things on the sticker sheet that I really think I would like to use, and sort of narrowing some things down for different reasons. Maybe a little too light or a little too large, or maybe the words aren't the sentiment that I'm particularly looking for at this particular time. So I kind of have a few things narrowed down here. And then I look for inspiration in a wide variety of places. Sometimes I use my own ideas. Sometimes I will just shoot from the cuff and sort of arrange things in a way that I feel is pleasing. I will use things that I've learned from Close to My Heart. I will get ideas from the current idea books as well as past idea books. I will also get ideas from current scrapbooking magazines and look for current trends. Usually the first thing I look at is what Close to My Heart has shown us using the particular line that I'm about to use. I love this featured layout, and each collection has a featured layout. It's usually a single page, and I absolutely love it. I've seen other makers use this featured layout, and it definitely might be one that I may use with this line. I love how it highlights all of the different patterns that come in this collection, and I love that you could actually use your Picture My Life cards for that as well. I love almost all of the layouts that they've used. If I were to use this particular layout, I would probably change up the circles. I would probably want to be able to create it so that it has more photo opportunities. I do love this layout here on the left with the banners, and I would maybe change up the right side just a little bit, but those are all great ideas. I also love this cover layout in one of our past idea books. This is one of our fellow makers, Amy McGrew, and I do believe there are lots of great ideas in this idea book. This is one that I've been thinking of. They simply took squares with seasoned mix-ins and cut them into triangles and made mountains. As far as Scrapbook and Cards magazines and other current trend paper crafting magazines, I love to get good ideas. And look, close to my heart's stamps, ink pads are in here. I absolutely love this layout. I might use something like that, but maybe fold over the paper or do some tearing techniques with that. Here's another one that I marked that I really do like. It's an 8.5 by 11, but it would easily be adjustable to a 12 by 12. I'm often looking at ways to be decorative, but also to have plenty of photo opportunities. I really loved this one, and I loved, even though it is more of a spring layout, I love the larger title. I was thinking of Just Remarkable, that I might be able to do something like this with Just Remarkable and maybe add larger photos and then maybe a companion page, like a typical grid like what's on this page. But I happen to love the pocket with this grid in it as well. Another go-to in our core catalog is a great reminder of our color books and our pattern books. I use those a lot for my Simply Scrappin. I have a tendency to get a little more off book and off pattern with my Sparkle and Shine workshops, but for my Simply Scrappin workshops, these pattern books are really a go-to. There are certain patterns that I love so much that I use them over and over. Here's a few patterns that I absolutely love in our color book, and it also refers these patterns back to our pattern books, and you can find the pages. When you see some of the references in our core book, you can go to the exact page where you can find them in our pattern books and in our color books. And here's a layout that I've used many times with the strips. And then I also loved this one that I could also convert from an 8.5 and an 11 to a full size. This one was very different with the circles, but I thought of the sticker sheet when I was looking at this layout because of the rounded tabs and tags, and there's also all different kinds of icons and shapes on the sticker sheet that I can match with other types of layouts. And I could see myself trimming some of those rounded tags and maybe creating a layout similar to that one. And then, of course, a generic banner layout was something that always kind of sparks my interest as well. So wow, there are tons of ideas to choose from, and I basically narrowed my first layout down to these 3 pieces of inspiration. I thought that I would like to start with this layout, but do modifications, change up, add a few paper strips perhaps, and maybe work with some of the patterns that are in Hey Handsome. I love the cluster up at the top on this, maybe putting that more toward the left, maybe getting an extra photo in there, or maybe making it into larger photos and adding more patterns. However, I did love this layout, how it uses the strips at the bottom, maybe 3/4 inch strips, 1/2 inch strips, and maybe I could incorporate strips underneath that main layout and then maybe decorate it a little bit more on the corner. And then I was kind of thinking about creating a companion page with that could draw out more photo opportunities. I love using a combination of ideas from multiple sources and pulling all that together into one. So again, thinking about that second page, and a lot of times I'm inspired by a single page layout because it seems like there are lots and lots of single pages out there, but then the trick is getting a page that balances, that goes with it, that can be a great coordinating page. So I love the concept of maybe creating smaller photos, maybe taking a 3x4 as a base and a photo mat and adding 2 3/4 by 3 3/4 photo to go with that. So they're a little bit littler, and so I can get some decorative elements, but yet lots of photo opportunities as well. So now the trick is choosing my base patterns. And so I want to definitely gut one of my patterns, meaning I want to create a frame so that I can use the interior piece. And basically, any of these would be great frames. It's just a question of which one you would like to use more as the background and which one you might use as a little bit more of a paper that's going to pop a little bit more that you could add to it. So here I'm just playing around with some of the cardstocks and what would look best on top of a frame. I really like this paprika on top of this more harbor frame, and I love to draw the color out with some of the Picture My Life cards. So I can see myself using the larger Picture My Life cards as photo mats, but I'm going to start by gutting this harbor pattern here, and I'm going to start at the 1 inch mark, and I'm going to cut down to the 11 inch mark, rotate 1 inch mark down to the 11 inch mark, rotate 1 inch to 11 inch, rotate 1 inch to 11 inch, and I've now created a frame so that I'm not going to waste that interior piece, and then I can experiment here with how this is going to look. Just on a whim, off the cuff here, I decided to do some tearing instead of having just a generic mat. So my Simply Scrappin workshops are guaranteed not to have any Cricut cuts or need any added equipment such as thin cuts, and so I'm a little more limited with how I make my shapes. I have to do more fussy cutting and get a little bit more creative with creating different backgrounds without adding Cricut cuts, because it's the guarantee that I make for my simple scrappers that it's going to be more cost effective. I'm just trimming a little bit of the white off so that I can do a little tearing to create that interior piece that goes inside the paprika. I just kind of want to see what this is going to look like, and I may have to do some additional tearing to get the frames right. And what I love about the tearing technique is it doesn't have to be perfect. You can kind of take another run at it and make your corners a little bit more round, take a little bit more off of it if you need to have it to be a little bit smaller. So I'm just working with it a little bit to get a little bit different of a base. Like I said, because my Simply Scrappin workshops, I won't be adding any Cricuts or adding any added expense with extras using thin cuts or stamps. I reserve my Sparkle and Shine workshops for all the extras, and that's where I add all of my Cricut cuts, my specialty papers, maybe some thin cuts and things like that. But for Simply Scrappin', I just want to keep it simple, and I want to keep it so that anyone, regardless of what kind of equipment they have or don't have, would be able to do this workshop. So I'm just struggling a little bit here to get it exactly the right size that I want it to be. So I'd rather start with a larger piece and keep working with it than end up not having enough coverage to cover the frame and then having to start over. And that's the one of the difficulties, I guess, in just starting in and creating without having too much planned out, is you have a little bit of work that you have to do. So now I have my background and I'm working a little bit to decide what I want to put in the background. I want to follow through with my original plan on pulling in some of the harbor color and some of the paprika color and working with some of those strips across the bottom. Now I'm just sort of playing with the strips that I've been given to work with and trying to decide if I want to avoid the black and white strip because I'm really working with more of the harbor. Excuse me. And I'm thinking that I'm going to perhaps use the strips horizontally in one way and vertically in the other way. And I definitely want to pull in some of this word pattern. It's just so, I don't know, vibrant. And I want to figure out some ways to be able to add more photo opportunities, but yet pull in that pattern paper and follow that original pattern that I really wanted to use, but change it up a little bit. So I've used 3x4 photo mats and 2 3/4 by 3 3/4 photo place cards to be able to make a little bit smaller of photos, but still be able to be large enough to capture all of your memories and not be so small that you have to crop your photos down so small. I think I would like to go ahead and use this weave pattern, a 1/2 inch strip of weave pattern, a 1/2 inch zip strip, and then a 3/4 inch weave pattern, and incorporate that picture my life card in there, and maybe work on a diagonal to be able to get all those photos on. And it looks to me that I will be able to use about a 6-inch piece, and I'll probably end up trimming a little bit off the bottom of that so that it fits inside my torn frame. Probably go to about 8 inches, maybe about 8.5. So I'm just kind of trying to measure here to see how much I can work with without going over that white interior piece. So I think I'm going to go to about 8.5 here, 8 or 8.5, 8. And so that gives me that nice splash of color. I'm going to cover up a lot of that, but I love that it's peeking through. So I'll be able to arrange these photos by overlapping them a little bit under and a little bit over to be able to get 5 or 6 photos on this section. And that's something that I hear from my paper crafters a lot. They really would like to have a bit of a decorative element, but they also want lots of photo opportunities, and it can be rather tricky to be able to do that. So I'm not quite sure about that 5th photo. I definitely do feel like I want to trim a little bit off of the Hey Good Looking card and be able to mat that. I always like to, I believe photo mats really just add a lot. And I may, I think I did about a 1/2 inch off of that. So I may even add another Picture My Life in card in there that I only take about a 1/4 inch off just to add an extra base in there. And I really love that Picture My Life card. Picture My Life cards are amazing to give you all kinds of extra patterns without having to use up that precious pattern paper that you really need to complete the rest of the layouts. So now I've taken that original inspiration. And instead of leaving a little decorative element there, I've put a picture of my life card up to the top, and I really do think I need more color down at the bottom. And I want to kind of look at what I have left to work with in these picture my life cards. I do love pulling the harbor in there. I may still add an additional photo opportunity there, but maybe with that harbor in the background. And it also kind of draws from the harbor on the left page as well. Excuse me. Okay, so now I'm happy with that. Now I'm going back over to my left page, and my original idea of using these picture my life cards as photo mats and making larger photo opportunities, maybe even 3 photo opportunities, but for sure larger photo opportunities than what was in the original layout. I do really like sticking with that harbor, but I love that burlappy pattern in this, but I don't want to sacrifice the title opportunity in the middle. So I'm actually going to gut this by taking a 1/2 inch off all the way around, but I'm going to lift up my paper trimmer so that I can actually make a little frame out of this, and then I can preserve the little center sentiment in there and have that really cute burlappy frame. And I can either put a photo underneath that frame. I can use that frame as simply as a decoration. And I know that I'm going to want to use Just Remarkable as my title. I'm kind of looking here to be sure because the Remarkable is kind of over the top of the paprika, but I think it's going to work just fine. So now I took that original picture my life card, and why waste the interior when I really only want a little bit of that to show? So I actually trimmed out that center piece, and then I'm sort of going to arrange it here and see what is pleasing. I'm not going to worry if there's a little gap on the bottom because the title will go over that. So now I've trimmed that frame that I made from the picture my life card out, and the interior of the checkered piece out, and it's a different color on the back. So now I have more pieces to work with because of the double sides. So now I'm going to play with it a little bit and just see if I can kind of have a little fun with the pieces of the frame and add bits. That's always my go-to, is finding more bits to add. You only have so many embellishments to stretch when you're stretching a paper pack and an embellishment set to 10 pages. You want to kind of conserve a little bit on your traditional elements and find some other elements that you can use that will really jazz up your pages and still leave you plenty of bits to use. So I kind of like that arrangement, and I feel like I can just totally make that work. Now what I would like to do is I would just like to come back in and do some decorating. I want to see what all I could possibly use with some of my acrylic shapes, with some stickers. There are even some picture my life cards that I could fussy cut a few more pieces out to add. Ooh, I just absolutely loved this distress pattern on this bicycle picture my life card, as well as this word picture my life card. I like the rough bits inside the patterns. I did kind of think about cutting out or fussy cutting out an icon to give a more softer circle to go with the rectangles. But the sentiment on that was a little bit more about friendship. And since I used the words, "Hey, good looking," I wanted to use it for my handsome husband. So I think I will trim some bits off of those picture my life cards without compromising compromising the icons and the sentiments in it. I can probably trim some bits off. I also like trimming bits out of pattern paper, and there's tons of little bits in this pattern paper that I could use. I really like this circle. I love the play on farm because we are a farming and ranching family, but I still need a lot of this pattern paper because I have 9 other pages to create. So I think I'll probably pick this circle that's down in the corner and maybe fussy cut that out because I won't compromise the rest of the pattern paper and I'll still have more to use. So I'm just simply going to cut a 1/2 inch strip off of that Picture My Life card and a 1/2 inch strip off of this Picture My Life card to maybe create a little bit of a cluster up in the corner for visual interest. So I'm going to fussy cut this circle out like I had originally planned, and I'm speeding this up just a little bit because this is probably a little bit like watching paint dry. I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to use this yet, but I do know that I do want to use that somewhere. Sometimes I like to collect bits and then sort of play around with where I might want it to be. I may not want it up in that corner because I already have paprika up in the corner. I do love this tab piece, but I want to conserve so that I can use the other half on something else. So I'm just going to fussy cut the top portion of that out. Oftentimes I don't really measure, I just kind of trim a little bit, which is another reason why I'm a little bit self-conscious to do these process videos. In fact, this is my first one because I sort of shoot from the hip and I don't exactly know where it's going to lead. Even if I start with inspiration, it often leads me in a completely different direction. But that's the beauty, right? So I'm just kind of playing around with some bits and seeing where I might want to tuck these pieces and add more interest to my pages. And I'm kind of playing around with the idea that I kind of like it off here on the right side, but now I do need that paprika color over here to sort of draw some color over on the right side. So I'll mess around with that a little bit and see if I can make that work. And I probably will, if I use it over on this side, I will need to pull maybe a little bit of black over there with an acrylic shape. But I have plenty of little star stickers. I have plenty of little star acrylic shapes. I'm also going to need a few little things for over on the right side. It's going to be filled with full color photos. And so that's going to change this layout a lot and add a lot of color and vibrancy to the layout. Unfortunately, my husband is a shy rancher and he has rules for me that are quite annoying to me. He doesn't allow me to post photos of him on Facebook. So unfortunately, I'm not able to put the photos that I'm going to use on this layout in the layout. Darn it. So he doesn't quite understand what a predicament he puts me in by being such a private person. We're just paper crafters. We love to share with other paper crafters. So I try to respect his privacy. And now I'm just kind of trying to take that same card, those same 2 cards that I trimmed off those 1/2 inch pieces, because I really have another 1/2 inch of each of those to work with to balance out the card without compromising the card. And I might like to try to draw a cluster over onto the other page that sort of pulls those 2 together and adds a little bit more interest to the right page. I don't need a whole lot on the right page because it's going to be so filled with photos, but a little bit might add, and it might tie the 2 pages together by using duplicate pieces. So I'm just kind of playing around with how I might want to do that. And oftentimes I might sort of just tuck them under a little bit without adhering them fully. I may leave them sit for a day or so. I might come back and look at that and decide, I don't really like that, or yes, I really like that. So I'm going to go ahead and tuck it and use it now. and then I may take it away later if I think it's a little bit too much, or if it clutters the page up too much, or if it actually adds. Sometimes until I take the photos and step back or I walk away, I'm not quite sure if I'm pleased with that or not. So there we have it. Thank you so much for watching, and please like and subscribe if you'd like to hang out some more. And stay tuned. Down the road here, you'll see the rest of the Hey Handsome Simply Scrappin' layouts and how they turned out. Happy scrapping!